you'd jump on and join us. There we go. Excellent. How's everyone doing today?
Very well, thanks.
Good. Good stuff. So, welcome to our cyber security webinar. We are in the midst of National Cyber Awareness Month in October, as I'm sure everyone's well aware. And as part of that, I'd like to welcome you to our webinar and discussion, really, just around the evolution of cyber and the threat landscape as we see it. So I'll start by just saying thank you to the team on the call and for participants jumping on there. We've got a session today really to go through where we're seeing the current landscape, how that's playing out in terms of the organizations we're working with, and also what that looks like as we go through the rest of the year, and both from a technology and a business and organizational change perspective. And to do that, I'm joined by three of my colleagues and partners. So if you'd like to just introduce yourselves, if we start from the top, Simon Jeffries. So Simon, would you give us just a brief introduction to yourself, please?
Hi there, yes, I'm Simon Jeffries and I work as the Technical Director at Complete IT. I've been here for around 15 years, so worked in the MSP world for over 20, but at CRT for 15, and obviously helped SMEs throughout this time. So I've got a good level of experience throughout all of these years and how cybersecurity has changed.
Thank you, Simon. Greg.
Hi, everybody. My name is Greg Jones. I'm Business Development Director for Datto. I look after the EMEA region. I've spent 24 years now in the IT space. Scary number, seem to be getting older each day, but mainly on the technical background before joining Datto as an organization. Yeah, and that's me.
Thank you. And Jay.
Morning, everybody. It's morning here. I'm in the US. So I'm Jay Ryerson. I'm a VP of Global Cybersecurity here at ConnectWise. I am a CISSP, so a Certified Information Systems Security Professional. And I spend most of my time working with businesses like Complete IT to help them solve the cybersecurity challenges.
Perfect. Thank you, Jay. And my name is Mark Williams. I'm Chief Operating Officer at Complete IT. And my role today is really to facilitate a conversation. We have a set of kind of questions to talk through to guide you through what we see as the current threat landscape and where we need to structure organizations and start to think about a little more how cyber is impacting how we work and how we evolve as we move forward. So we have a Q&A session at the end, so please feel free to ask questions as we go. We'll go into the Q&A chat section and we'll pick those up as we get towards the end. But if we're all ready, shall we make a start? So I think the first thing we're looking at is that effectively looking at where we are today, how do you see the cyber threat landscape has evolved to get to where we are today? And I'll start with Simon on this one, because I think from your perspective, Simon, in terms of how you've seen the market evolve and how we're working with our clients, what does that look like for you?
Yeah, well, of course, as I said at the start, been here for over 15 years now. So at that sort of time, 10 to 15 years ago, you know, security was not really a big topic, you know, for the clients that we support in the SME world. We might have had some kind of basic antivirus, basic firewall facilities, but it was kind of, because that's the thing you do, it wasn't really a big topic, as I said. So it wasn't really until the 2014 era kind of area where ransomware became really came up in the cyber world, and then we began to see businesses that we support, the smaller businesses, become really quite affected by modern cyber threats. And we had quite a number of clients at the time who were infected or had issues, and obviously were then ransomed for money if they couldn't recover. And of course, since then, we've been evolving what we do as a business and the products and services that we we offer our clients to help them protect them against cyber threats. And of course, cyber security has really accelerated in the last 2 or 3 years, and now we're seeing these ransomwares, attacks being more of being evolved, so that where they're extending it out to, say, copy data away from a business now, so that they can ransom them, and even if people are able to recover their data, the cyber attackers have got hold of it. We're seeing a lot of social engineering through phishing attacks, predominantly for emails. I think that's the #1 entry point into an infrastructure now. So it's been quite a change over this time, and specifically in the last 3 years. And now, anything that we do with our clients, projects, when we go on site, everything has to be with security in mind. No matter what you do, we can't ignore it. It's at the forefront of everything that we have to do with our clients now, to ensure that they are as protected as possible against becoming a kind of victim.
Have you seen any specific technology change that you think has driven part of this?
Well, yes. I mean, clearly in the last couple of years, when we've been working in lots of different locations, cloud technology has really accelerated. Of course, it has done for the last 5-10 years anyway, but given how suddenly people had to change how they worked, there's been quite a number of new challenges that have been presented by people working from lots of different locations. That was done on a short period of time. So with people using their own devices, some businesses actually had to potentially, in some cases, reduce their security in order to open up the environment so people could work remotely. And of course, when you fall outside of the controls inside an office location where your core infrastructure may well be, you're at much greater risk. And of course, then the cloud platforms themselves, very secure, but if you don't do simple things such as enable MFA, then you're opening yourselves up to an attack, because public platforms are unfortunately a big target for cyber criminals.
Yeah, thank you. So Jay, same for you. So if you look at the landscape of past years, how have you seen that evolve from a ConnectWise perspective?
Well, I think everything that Simon just said is absolutely true. I mean, it all makes sense. It's what we're seeing is happening. What I'm afraid that we're seeing more of is businesses and even users, are so numb to the amount of cybersecurity challenges and alerts that are going on that they're now ignoring them, right? And they're not even taking them seriously. And yet the level of loss is so much grander than it has been. The payouts that small businesses are paying to get their data back, or to restore, legal fees, compliance notification, all those kinds of things have a major impact on business. And so now we're at the point where, businesses that have not been through a cyber attack don't really understand how painful it's going to be. And so, just ignoring it and saying, well, we're too small, it won't happen to us, is not a plan that you can live with anymore, because you're putting your entire business at risk these days.
Yeah, I think, Greg, that is the not if, it's when scenario that we're coming to now. So Greg, from a data standpoint, how do you see this?
Yeah, absolutely. I certainly resonate with what Simon and Jay both say. We're seeing that in the marketplace. This is unprecedented times. We are seeing, the highest amount of ransomware at the moment. Cybercrime is at an all-time high. And back to Jay's point, Jay is bang on the money with that comment. Many SMBs think, we are not a target, but every organization needs to be thinking of when we are attacked, not if we are attacked. Certainly throughout COVID-19 and this hybrid work from anywhere, work from home environment, that has just opened up the door for bad actors out there to exploit many more businesses and organizations across the board. It is frightening what we are seeing from our side of the fence at the moment.
Okay, thank you. So if we kind of move on to the next stage of this, so it's clearly they're becoming more sophisticated, but from a commonality piece, what do you see as the piece that we need to be aware of, and how are you seeing the sophistication of these things change over time? And let's go to Jay for this one to start us off.
Yeah, so I would look at it financially, Mark. Where are businesses getting harmed by cybersecurity where it's costing them money, because some things that happen just don't cost a substantial amount of money, so we don't care. The two areas where we're seeing the largest payouts for losses are business email compromise and ransomware. Right now in US dollars, the average ransom payment paid worldwide is about $130,000. So probably 100,000 quid roughly. And that's not covering the cost of, again, compliance, of reporting, of remediation, of getting the business back up and running. And the second area where we're seeing a lot of pain is what we call business email compromise. Now, it starts with phishing in many cases, but it turns into where somebody in your accounting department, your payables department, changes an account because they got an email from a business whose email had been compromised. They wouldn't know that. And they're asking them to change the account payable information for their ACH and their payments. The next thing you know, they're making payments to the attacker's account. And 2 months later, that business calls up and says, hey, we haven't received a payment from you in 2 months. You've always been a great client. Are you everything okay? Of course, you're like, what do you mean? We've been paying our bills. Here's what we paid these payments on these dates. And now you've got, a business and their client who are at odds because money was wired inappropriately. And the average loss right now worldwide is about $94,000. Again, that's probably 70,000 quid. I don't know about you, but I don't know too many businesses that would be real happy about that.
No, indeed. And Simon, you're seeing this on, I wouldn't say a daily basis, but you're seeing the other side in terms of the recovery process. What's your feedback on it? So in terms of more sophisticated approaches?
Yeah, it's quite along the lines of what Jay just said, actually. What we see is those email compromises and a lot of them, and have been for quite some time now. People, falling for these sophisticated phishing attacks. And it's not just via email, there's also from text messages, from even phone calls now. And we've I think even our own employees have on occasion received the odd text message, that they're potentially duped them. But once, they're through there, as financial information is lost, or they click on something malicious, and actually then starts this chain of events of the ransomware's on, the data's being copied, systems are taken down. And we've had quite a number of occasions where we've had to assist clients with the recovery of their environments through this. And all it takes is that one little click, something silently installs, and then you're in the trouble. So we've spent an awful lot of time, recovering takes an awful lot of time, and of course then helping the business identify what data has been lost or compromised and how sensitive that is also a big piece of that. So
this isn't a new conversation though, Simon. It seems like we're having the same conversation again. So it does get through to clients and people we speak to, but the attacks are getting more and more sophisticated, so they're seemingly getting around.
I mean, exactly, everything's getting more advanced. Those cyber criminals are getting more advanced, and we're having security controls that we put in, or that we helped our clients with in the past, are no longer good enough to accommodate these modern threats. So we're having to we are offering new services that can help protect against this, can help then stop any kind of threats that do get through the gaps as such. So it's a constant evolution, alongside evolving a client's infrastructure, helping them make good productive use of their cloud technology, etc. As I said a minute ago, security has to be alongside it every step of the way. Otherwise, you're leaving holes there, or potential holes for a bad actor to compromise.
It seems a good AV and a good firewall is no longer, and continues to no longer.
Absolutely not. Your standard spam filter is not going to cut the mustard.
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. And Greg, from your perspective, what do you see?
In terms of around ransomware and phishing attacks, they are absolutely exploding now. But we are just seeing bad actors, criminal organisations, just being more audacious in their approach to attacking SMBs, whether that be targeted or just randomly seeing what they can catch out there in the marketplace Simon's right in terms of, this is not something that you just buy a antivirus or a spam filter and you're done. Unfortunately, the world that we live in now, security is an ongoing evolution, that it's not a project that we tick off. It's a continually, you need to address kind of cybersecurity, cyber resilience as a 360 holistic approach, not only with technology solutions, but also education, your empowerment of your teams. Education is sometimes massively overlooked, and sometimes that can be the biggest win for protecting any organization from an attack.
Yeah, no, and I think we see that on a almost daily basis. I think one of the other things that we're finding, and as we move on to the next section, is just around the workforce and the changes in the workforce. I think even today, from a COVID perspective, there are talks of what does Plan B look like? Are we looking at a Plan B scenario, and therefore the workforce beginning to work from home in certain scenarios? But as we look at that, what is the fundamental shift, and how is cyber going to be affected by that? So from Jay, from your perspective, how do you see that?
Well, we talk about the perimeter of an office network has disintegrated, right? With work from home and with people working, off of a variety of different devices, from bring your own devices to company owned equipment. The areas that we're now required to protect are much bigger. And I think there's a bunch of things that are misnomers that we would call out. First off, cloud is not necessarily more secure. It can be, it should be fundamentally, but it's not. If you think about what the cloud is you've taken the servers out of your back closet and you put them in somebody else's data centers. There's still some responsibility and obligations as the data owner, you as the business owner or the person managing the data in a business, to understand how is it backed up? Where is it stored? How fast can we recover? What does the recovery process look like? What security controls do you have in place? And so I think the biggest shift is that, business owners and data owners, as we call them, the MDs, the FDs, and everybody else who's involved in these conversations, need to take a step back, zoom out just a little bit and say, okay, here's our new environment. Our data is, some of it's there and some of it's there and some of it's here and some of it's on the user's laptop. How are we going to secure all of that? And what are we going to put in place to make sure that if there is a cyber attack, that we can actually survive it? I think that's a place where, Datto has done a great job of helping solve solutions. And we're spending a lot of time working with businesses to help them put in the protections to avoid it altogether. So I think at the end of the day, that disintegrated network is a challenge that we all have to consider.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we're seeing that. It's a number of people looked at it and said, we've just taken our machines home. It should be fine because we have AV on them. That's not a solution. And as Plan B is talked about more, it's just going to become more prevalent. So Simon, on a day-to-day basis, what do you see here, and how are we looking to solve this?
Yeah, well, I mean, as I'm echoing some of Jay's points. Yeah, I mean, with people working lots of different locations, they're coming out of the protection of their office locations and actually using lots of different devices. And of course, when lockdown happened, people were using lots of their own devices, and we obviously then cannot guarantee any type of security on those. People were potentially sharing data across drives, personal email. We saw quite a lot of that in the smaller businesses, and to help combat that, we're having to evolve how we protect end user devices. So whereas before we're in the nice comfort of our office location with all our security, we're now having to really beef up the security on the endpoints that we provide or the businesses provide users. We need to to monitor those. We need to be able to immediately remediate and be made aware when there are issues or problems, and also ensure that other things such as our data is protected, it is encrypted. We've identified what data, which data is sensitive, and it needs these controls in place. And there's lots of areas we can cover, but it's just such a different way of working now, and people had to kind of go at it on their own in a lot of cases and just worked in the best way they could. And now we're helping our clients improve their remote working, helping them use the security controls that they've quite often got but don't realize they have in relevant services they have, and just make better use of that, as well as, you know, help securing their endpoints, help securing their email, you know, those kind of big targets that cyber criminals will try and attack, and just putting as many controls in place as possible. It's not a small job, but, you know, we've got lots of clients, and, you know, but we've got lots of consultants out there who are helping them. So it's it's an ongoing piece, but it's getting that message across correctly to them so that they understand, you know, that they can't forget about cybersecurity. It should be at the forefront of what they do.
I think the whole notion of the perimeter disintegrating it is spot on, because you're having lots of different locations for data that you didn't know you had. Like you said, yeah. Simon, it's suddenly understanding what your environment looks like and how you are putting a net around that and securing it. It's not a case of taking the PC home or the laptop home, because you've got the data in so many different locations now that it's already out there. So, Greg, just give us your view on this.
I think for many SMB organizations, there just needs to be a focus going forward around security. And that certainly comes back down to budget going forward. I echo, you know, Simon and Jay's points. The perimeter has literally disappeared now. It's out there in home environments. You only need to look at any individual in a household. You know, we have now got business data traversing networks at home with maybe children, partners, spouses, whether it's Netflix traffic. And, you know, some of this is extremely sensitive business data, whether that's, you know, around research and development or just financial and figures. It just needs a stronger approach, a start with security and build on from that, really. The evolution around security in the threat landscape is continually evolving, and we just really all need to step up a level in terms of protection.
Yeah, okay. So, I mean, we often talk about this staggered approach and the multi-layered approach to cyber, but, you know, for the uninitiated amongst us, what does that actually mean? So how would you start in that journey? So to Jay.
So my view from the security world is a little bit unexpected. You know, you would assume that I'd say, okay, let's throw a bunch of technology at the problem. But the reality is we need to step back and assess our own environments, understand what we have, where the data is, who's using it, how they're accessing it, what current protections are in place, and what, you know, survivability controls are in place. So when I think of the layers of security, I start thinking about people, process, and technology. Yeah. And so you've got to look at your company policies first. You know, what do you have for acceptable use policies? What are the privacy rules that you have put in place? What are the requirements for using VPN connection or other equipment, you know, in cloud applications and secure them? You know, are the users allowed to add their own cloud applications to the network, or what we call shadow IT? Meaning, if you're storing all of your files in you know, SharePoint and OneDrive, and a user says, "Hey, I can't get that from home," so they open up a Dropbox account and they copy all their files over there. You know, did you know and were you aware that happened? And then, of course, how are you going to secure that and back those things up? So I start looking at, you know, what are the policies? Then I'm going to look at the processes you have in place, because a policy without a process is ineffective. And then you can go back and look at the technology itself and plug in and use technology to close the gaps and allow you to deliver security in scale, meaning you can make it affordable and make it possible to attain. So it's a little different approach that a lot of us forget to think about, but that's the starting point of all things security is, again, people and process and technology.
Thank you. And Greg, as the product side of this, do you start the documentation, the shadow IT? How do you approach it?
You know, that's an amazing question, and also a great response from Jay. And there's a reason why there's two of your strategic partners on today. And I'm made up to say we both have the same answer. The last piece of the jigsaw should be technology. It is people and processes. From a technology point of view, yes, there are many different technologies you can implement around protecting your organization, how you detect any incidents, and how you respond and you recover. But first of all, my recommendation is all about education. Look internally at your own business first, and then start with empowering your teams just around some of the basic education around cybersecurity. I worked for many years before joining Datto as an organization for local and central government and many different IT organizations. And I can tell you that the largest risk to any organization, irrelevant of the size of your IT budget or your security budget, is always the same. It is the human element. We are the wild card in essence. We whether that's accidentally or maliciously, or we just drop the ball. And if we start there around just education and training, I'm not saying that's going to win the war. There is no silver bullet around cybersecurity and cyber defense for your organization. But look internally first, start with education, build out your people, your process, and then fill the gap around technology for any holes you have.
Thank you. And I love the consistency there. So Simon, as the person advising our clients and at the front end of this, what's your view?
Yeah, well, of course, everything that Greg and Jay, absolutely. So we're a technology company, but we've quite often started with our clients and obviously helping them get some of their house in order, along with certain things like cyber essentials, helping them get those policies and procedures in place, getting a good level of security posture across all the common factors within the organisation. And of course, as they say, there's the education piece on that. We obviously look at the technology button, and that's the last piece. But we were able to help our clients understand how they should be securing their technology once they've got their pieces in order. So it's not just about, as we touched on at the start, having your standard spam filter anymore. We need to complement what you've got with multiple layers of that, and the same with anything they do. So we need to help protect those cloud services. Jay talked about they can be insecure, but there's a lot of ways to make them very secure indeed if you use the right controls, the services that they ship with. So we look at all of the high target areas that a cyber attacker might try to compromise, and then help them secure those further with relevant products and services, but also using a lot of technology that they've already got, like I said before. But cyber essentials is a great way to start to get a good level of security posture throughout your organization.
I'm pleased you said that in terms of the cyber essentials, because I do see that as a key starting point for lots of organizations. It's almost the basic level, and I think there's 50 points that you look at to say, where are you on a scale? What I do find is a lot of organizations say, we won't do cyber essentials because we know we're going to fail. But from what I've seen, it's more of a starting point to say, well, where are you on that journey? And go down that part. You don't have to go through the full accreditation at the start. You're looking to work out how you get to a cyber essentials.
Exactly. I mean, it's not something that you have to complete, but there's so many components to it, like 50 levels, as you said, that you can get, begin to build that up over time. You don't have to do it all at once. There's nothing that's saying you have to pass this, but it's it provides a good level of security posture to help you on your journey.
And Simon, we see this, but I'm curious if you're seeing this. When you start looking at that checklist of items, do a lot of your clients already have some of those controls already in place?
Yeah, quite often. I mean, we'd like to hope so because we're managing them. But yeah, of course, there's we will do that gap analysis. There, of course, are from what we've done over the last few years with our clients and helping us secure them. So,
is it rare that you go into an environment that has zero of the controls in place?
Oh yeah, we went. I can't recall that happening. I mean, it might be for a client that we've recently taken on. It all depends, but I think generally people have, there's never been anyone that I can recall that's ever been that bad, if you like.
Yeah, I consider it like investing. When the first time you put money into an investment account, maybe it's the first time you had a paycheck when you were very young, and you put in 50 quid into an account, and you were so excited because now you can have extra money when you retire. Well, that 50 doesn't really do it, but every month over time, investing and putting some more in and building up over time helps you get there. If you don't start that process now, trying to go back later on when all of a sudden you have a business need to do it right away is a lot of stress for a business. So it's easier to do it in small bits and bites than it is to try to do it all at once. And so, working with CIT and others, you have the ability to figure out what you've already got in place and then go drive forward, because everybody should meet that minimum standard.
Yeah, and I think a lot of businesses know themselves where they will start on that. If they're still sitting there with a Post-it note on the screen with a password on it, then you're at a different starting point. But it is a good set of standards to approach it from. Okay, so if we just move on a little bit in terms of what happens next. So, having a disaster recovery plan is absolutely advisable, but if you are looking at this, what should you have in place to kind of start that? And if a breach happens, where do you kind of start with that from a DR perspective? And should we start with Greg on this one?
Yeah, absolutely. When building out your technology plan really around business continuity and disaster recovery, first, again, it comes back to your internal organization, looking at the data which matters to you as an organization, and really looking at the total picture of your business, how long you can afford to be down for, what is the impact on that in terms of your business, and again, building out your processes around looking at it from a technology point of view. How long can we afford to be offline for? What does this mean to our business? Which parts of our data are more critical than others? And wherever your data lives, obviously Complete IT can help you with protecting that data, no matter where it lives really. But again, I'm going to come back with not just running out and buying tech around BCDR. Start by truly scoping it out, work with Complete IT. When you start looking at cybersecurity and cyber resilience and protecting your organization, it can be daunting. It is daunting. It's daunting for us at Data. I'm sure it's daunting for Jay over at ConnectWise. This is not just a daunting process for smaller organizations, SMEs, or even medium. You should be leveraging the likes of Complete IT so that they can give you a baseline and say, where do we go from here? How do we build? And ultimately, how do we truly protect our organization? That will be my advice.
I think one of the things you mentioned there, and Simon, if you could pick this up for us, when we look at disaster recovery, there's always a difference between business continuity and disaster recovery. And I think we group it into the same thing, but could you kind of give us a view on the difference between the two and where that kind of sits from a buyer of IT services?
Yeah, we've got to look at the event of attack and how people or business can continue to work in the event that there's a disaster, a cyber attack, or even a natural issue. So it's all about having plans about how you can recover systems, but how you can continue to run your environment even in the event of disaster, and making that as a smooth transition as possible, ensuring you've got your acceptable policies in place for how you're storing your data, how you're protecting your data, how people are accessing it, keeping logs on what changes you've made, so that there's a consistent view of what's been configured on your infrastructure throughout. And of course, understanding the points of how to recover your environment, the time objectives, the point objectives that you'd like to refer back to or be able to cover, and also just generally how you would recover your environment in the event of a disaster, and where people might reside, where they might go, how they will work if certain systems are not available.
I think from one thing Jay said, it's about having the basics in place. It's that recovery point and recovery time. So, where you're trying to get back to and how long does it take you to get to that piece. And it's about looking at the application set you have. And it all comes back to the documentation, the plan, and understanding what the starting point is. Jay, from your perspective, what processes do you think are vital and should have in place on a data breach?
Yeah, I'm gonna get a little bit tactical here. You're gonna want to have multiple copies and multiple backups. You know, a local copy, a cloud copy, and an offline copy. You know, one that the attackers can't get to across the wire. And not that cloud wouldn't be secure, but you need to kind of use, when it comes to backups, it's belts and suspenders, right? You want a bit of everything so that you don't have those kinds of issues. Next thing I would tell you is that none of us as business owners have a tendency to plan for a disaster. But in cybersecurity, we consistently run what we call tabletop exercises. You know, we go into a room and somebody presents a scenario that just happened, and the team has to tell us how they're going to respond and what it's going to look like.
Right.
I'm not saying you've got to do it every week or every month, but you know, a couple of times a year to just practice through how you're going to handle any type of disaster. And again, whether it's a loss of building, a fire, a flood, theft, you know, or a cyber attack, they're all a little bit different in how you respond. So, you know, when you've got that plan in place, it's not just disaster recovery, but there's incident response, which includes forensics, insurance companies, and legal matters that you're gonna have to deal with. You know, figure those things out up front. I was talking to a partner earlier this week who had been through a cyber attack in their own business. And he said that, you know, they had a really good plan. They had been practicing it. Everybody was good. We were prepared. And when they got to the office after this event had occurred, they said, okay, where's the plan? And they all looked at each other and realized that the plan was stored on the server that was hit by ransomware. So, you know, have a printed copy of the plan, you know, but put it in a safe place, put it in the safe. I don't know, put it somewhere. But again, multiple copies of backups in multiple locations, including offline, and then practice this work. It'll speed up your recovery effort after anything bad goes wrong, just by knowing how it all works and having done it a few times.
Yeah, I think the layered approach is vital, because as it gets more sophisticated attacks, it's not good enough to say I have a cloud version of this and I have a copy somewhere on the network, because the whole point of a cyber attack is they've usually been there a long time already. They've already established what you've got, and they've put everything in place to make sure you can't. So it's a game, and it's a cat and mouse scenario. So having a layered approach is vital.
And it wasn't that long ago, Mark, that we used to have tapes. Yeah. And once a week, somebody would take the tapes home, right?
Yeah.
You know, that was your offline copy at your second location. And we can't lose that fundamental expectation of how backups and survivability really looks and how it acts.
Yeah. Long live tape.
Long live tape.
Absolutely not. Long live
in the right scenario. In the right scenario. Okay, so from another standpoint then, and this is sometimes a contentious point, that who do you think really should own cybersecurity for an organization? And I'll start with the IT department. Simon, who should own cybersecurity for an organization?
Well, everyone's got a responsibility in an organization to keep their data safe, but of course it's down to the business to ensure that, you know, the correct, again, it all goes back to policies and procedures and that people adhere to them. So the training around that, around your security posture, what you do with your data and the security of it. But yeah, we've all got that responsibility to ensure that what we're doing is you know, best for the business and with the security in mind all the time. You know, clearly there's going to have to be the people in the business that drive that and that take ownership of it. You know, and varying sizes of business, that could be different, you know, people. Absolutely. With the SME market, there's so many different sizes of business. You're not going to have dedicated heads for this in lots of SMEs. But in order to, it has to be driven from the director level in order to filter down to the rest of the business. But making sure your house is in order with all of those processes that you have in place, so that everybody is aware of what their responsibility is.
I think the threat can come from anywhere, so that's the point on everyone in terms of who owns that piece. Greg, what's your view?
Absolutely, everybody plays a key part of it, and it's not only, you know, your internal staff, it's also looking at your either supply chain or people that you'll work for your organization. It might be the cleaning company next door that have your cleaning company, coming in, your whole supply chain really. But ultimately, this does stop at a director level. Cybersecurity, cyber resilience is such a concern for organizations. This can take you offline as an organization. It's no longer an IT department conversation. This is a board level topic. It should be addressed from a board level and then pushed down right through the organization. Threats are coming from, wide and fast, from phishing attacks, malware. I joked as I then all mentioned about a cleaning organization. There was a SMB I was talking to not long ago, and they were exploited by a cleaning contractor that was asked to plug something in onto the network, which they'd done. And joking aside, when you stop and think about it for a moment, a cleaning company has the right to come into your office, possibly before you even start work in the morning, walk around your offices, maybe plug something in. Would you notice? This is about a full approach to looking at cybersecurity. So, yeah, that would be my advice.
I think more and more we're seeing, especially from board level, cyber being on board papers, being in risk logs, being in a kind of a rag status where people sit with it. Cyber Essentials is helping with that, but it's getting more and more noticed, not just because the fines and the impact it's having, but because it's a serious area.
Yeah, and I think you're going to see more of this from government as well. So certainly around compliance from the likes of IASME and many different qualifications for your business to say, we have an understanding of our risk within our business. Because going back to one of Jay's points, what gets measured typically tends to get improved over a period of time. You need to have a baseline. Now, the government said to all organizations, you should get behind this, get accredited from your business. But last week in the press, we seen that the government are saying, we are thinking about for the future, every organization must have cyber insurance, because this is a huge threat to our economy. Certainly, I'm not taking this on a Brexit standpoint, but, we come out of Brexit, we want to be a kingpin, we have a massive economy, and cyber security is a huge threat to our overall economy. So you're going to see a, top down to a top heavy approach.
So if we take this across the pond slightly, not to be political, but how do you see this from your side, Jay? Who owns it first?
Yeah, it's really no different. I talk to business owners all the time, and they all want to tell me that their IT team owns cybersecurity.
Yeah.
And so I ask them, so how much budget have you allocated for cybersecurity? And they look at me kind of puzzled, like, well, isn't that just part of technology? Isn't that what you do? Yeah, but a lot of IT projects that you ask them to do, like, go make sure Mary can print, is not a security request, but it has security implications. So what are you budgeting for that team to allocate towards security? We talked earlier about the disintegration of the perimeter of a business. What we really meant there is that when all the users went home to work, they took their laptops and they took their antivirus, but they didn't take the firewall. You didn't divvy that red box into 96 pieces and give it to all of your colleagues before they went home. And so how do we go back and rethink these things? And it starts with that assessment. Understand what you have, where it is, what the importance of it is, and how you would currently defend it and how you would recover from it. And then you get to allocate budget, which means, again, it's the board of directors, it's the FD, it's the MD that own this ultimately. Now, the IT team, the cyber teams have to implement correctly, and that there's always some culpability there. And we talked about, the employees, everybody has some ownership in this. We talked about training employees and getting their buy-in, but I would kind of finish with, it starts with culture. And the culture and the belief at the top of an organization trickles down. And so as leaders in businesses start to understand the impact of cyber to their business, they'll start to think cyber first in all their conversations and all their decision-making to make sure that we're putting in the right controls and processes. Not everything in cyber costs money, but it might require they sacrifice a little bit of convenience, right? Multi-factor authentication, having to get a code. it has such a major impact on the security of a business, and nobody wants to do it because it's too difficult, or I only want 4 characters in my password. No, stop it.
Yeah.
Sacrifice some convenience to be a little bit more secure and survive to see better days.
100%, 100%. So if we move on again, and I think a lot of this has been is where are we now, and what's happening with the current threat landscape, but what's next, and where's it going? Greg.
So it's really interesting. We are not seeing a slowdown anytime soon. We are only going to see an acceleration. There's just a continual evolution around, even if we take the likes of ransomware. We've been talking about ransomware since 2014, 2013. It is still now more prevalent than ever. I've been at 2 events the last couple of days. My keynotes have all been around cyber resilience. We've been talking at cyber resilience and ransomware, but it's really interesting. We're seeing an explosion around how businesses are being exploited around ransomware. We're seeing double extortion. I think Simon alluded to it earlier. Even if you have a great business continuity and disaster recovery plan and solution for you getting your business operational, this is now no longer enough. Bad actors are coming back and saying, that's great that either you are not paying the ransom or you have paid the ransom, but if you don't pay again, we're going to release a copy of your data because we took a copy of your data out onto the dark web or to your competitors. We're even seeing bad actors approaching staff within organizations and offering them large sums of money for their credentials for half an hour, an hour. We're seeing social engineering. It's just an explosion. I would say, for any organization on today's call, is my one tip would just be regular cadence with reviewing your cybersecurity posture with Complete IT, and talk about it, get everything on the table, and just start measuring your goal. You are not going to achieve true cyber protection, resiliency, or security overnight. This is a continual project that you will work on for many years ahead.
Thank you. Simon.
Yeah, I mean, from CIT's point of view and what we can do for our clients, or how we can help our clients, as I've said a couple of times, it's at the forefront of what cybersecurity is, at the forefront of whatever we do. So, we're evolving what we do. We're going to want to help our clients be protected against these cyber threats, introduce more proactive security monitoring, help them start to adopt zero trust platforms or frameworks for their environments. Jay mentioned about MFA, simple things like that. We have that exact issue with a lot of clients around them not wanting it because it's too difficult, whatever. But it's about us being able to get that right message across to the right people in the business, so that then that can filter down and we can get that good level of security posture throughout. There's lots of small things we can do that can make a big difference, on the security of an infrastructure. And, that's what we want to try and get across to our clients, so that we can help them be as secure as possible. And it's not all about, technology, as we've touched on here. It's that training, just being aware, but, and the security of the data, getting those processes in place. I think, a lot of what we've been doing over the past few years is absolutely still relevant. It's just taking it to that next level and just instilling the importance of it within our clients, so that we can get them to that secure level.
Thank you. And Jay.
So the speed at which the organized crime, the threat actors out there that are organized, are able to take over a network is mesmerizing. An average attacker who knows what they're doing can take over an entire network in 19 minutes once they've been given some level of access. So if we know that's the case, and we use the large enterprise, the biggest companies in the world, to see what they've been doing, because their technologies and their defenses are now working their way down into the SMB space, I think that you're going to see a nice focus on detection. The average intruder is in a network about 160 days before they've been identified or they've launched their attack. So if we can detect an intruder sooner, we can reduce the risk. We can reduce when they're stealing data and putting it out in the dark web. We can reduce the risk to a business if we can determine that they're in the network in the first 30 minutes versus 30 days versus 90 days versus beyond that. And so what I'm thinking about what matters in cybersecurity the most, and that is truly detection. If I can find them when they start to enter the network, whether it's with EDR or SIM or other advanced technologies that the enterprises had for years but are now affordable for SMBs, then I can substantially reduce the risk to my business. And so while both the attackers and the defenders are using these advanced technologies, small businesses have been a little bit slower to adopt. And so I think we're going to see that they're going to understand the need to drive detection capabilities into their business as a way of getting that visibility that they don't have today on a potential intruder being in their network.
Thank you. So we're coming towards the end of the session, and I'm conscious that we've got some questions that we're going to go through. If anyone has any questions, please add it into the Q&A section. But for final thoughts then, and we'll start with Simon, if you can kind of give us the one thing that you think everyone can do to strengthen their defense and protect their organizations. What was the one thing you'd like people to take from this?
Well, if you're not sure where to start, I mean, I absolutely think adopting, as we've said before, cyber essentials. There's so many controls in there. You can do a great gap analysis and see where you currently sit against that credential, and identify areas that you need to improve quite quickly.
Thank you. Greg.
I would say my one tip for any organization on today's session is like anything in life, take action with some of the content from today. As we are on this webinar discussing how to protect our organizations, I can guarantee you the bad actors out there are looking on the direct opposite on how to exploit your organization or organizations out there. These are not small organizations as well. It pains me to say it, but when you look at these organizations of the bad actors who are attacking SMBs out there, in all rights, they are amazing businesses. They operate 24 hours a day, 7 days a week in multiple different geographical locations. They are very agile, flexible, but also as well, these organizations even have the likes of customer services departments that operate 24 hours a day to help you pay the ransom. They are serious about it. So you as an SMB need to really start your journey and just engage with Complete IT, start the journey around cyber resilience. Yeah, that would be my tip. Take action.
Thank you. Jay.
So I wish only was only one thing, right? But I think that Simon and Greg both hit on probably the two most important things. Assess against the standard, see where you are and how you measure up. Get your head out of the sand. But at the end of the day, keep learning, keep asking questions. Keep talking to your vendors so that you understand. Because the more you understand as a business owner, the easier it becomes to make good decisions on behalf of your business. And so continue on that learning journey when it comes to cybersecurity.
Thank you. So I think I'll summarize that with assess, take action, and keep learning in terms of what we do next. So as with all these things, we come to the question section, and I'm conscious I don't want to run out of time. So if I can just jump into the questions now and see if we have some of those. So, so the first one we have is, do the same risks apply to on-site to cloud devices? I think there's always this piece that we push cloud all the time. Cloud is the only option, but there is still a very big on-premise infrastructure out there in lots of organizations. So Simon, so do the same risks still apply?
For cloud, absolutely. Your cloud platforms are publicly available from anywhere in the world. So they are liable for, well, they are under attack constantly, specifically around brute force of accounts that don't have MFA, simple controls like that in place. You know, if you look at, you know, platforms, example like Microsoft 365, of course, we don't only have to worry about the operating systems or the applications themselves, but of course, all our business data is in there. And if we haven't protected the access to it and still protected the data with encryption itself, then, you know, it's at as much risk as an on-premise environment.
Yeah,
you know,
I think part of the question is looking at in terms of cloud devices coming into the environment as well. So where you've got a cloud device that actually sits on site, how do you look to secure that piece?
so a device that's sat
A cloud device that sits on site.
Yeah, well, I mean, obviously, that's as it's always been. You know, we have to provide good levels of protection through restricting how that device is accessed. In the same way we've always done, you know, proper controls, monitoring of that device through, you know, your firewalls, through your security protocols. It's you know, that it doesn't matter if it sits in your infrastructure or it's the cloud service itself. They're all still just as liable for attack. So
just another endpoint, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah, the same security posture you would do wherever you put that.
Yeah, it doesn't matter what it is. You know, like I said, with everything that you do, you've got to consider security. So just think, you know, what is the likelihood of something happening to this, and what do I need to protect it and recover from something if it happens.
And so to move on to the next question. So a quite practical question from Martin, which is helpful. So is it possible to list the key policies any business should have in place? And I think we've looked at some of this as we've talked through, but where we start and what those policies should be. So Jay, if you could give us a response to that one.
Yeah, there's about 15 to 18 of them. What I would suggest we'll do, and I'll volunteer the content is that we've pre-written all of what we would believe to be all the necessary ISO 27001 policies around cybersecurity. I'll share those templates over to yourself and to Simon, and you guys can share them out to all the attendees, you know, Martin and others, to use as a starting point in the conversations.
Perfect. And Greg, to you, is there anything that you see consistently as a starting point for policies?
I would say following a framework, whether that be, you know, any of the standards that we've talked about today. A real good one that certainly, you know, Complete IT can help you with is the NIST framework around cyber resilience. That helps you really define how to protect your organization. Obviously follow the documents Jay's going to send over. I can also share a document, Mark and Simon, with you with some tips and maybe you know, an amalgamation of the two. We'll start you on the journey. So yeah, that would be my starting point, really.
Okay, thank you. And then just final thoughts. So Simon, can you just give us your kind of, we've had the one thing we need to do, but final thoughts on where we go from here?
Yeah, I think, you know, lots of businesses are aware of cybersecurity clearly. Probably lots of them put it to one side, but you've got to look at everything now, tomorrow. Don't put it to the back of your mind. I know everyone's busy, there's lots of things to be doing, but we've got to make sure that your house is in order, because you may have never had an issue, but that could happen at any time. And as the cyber threats become more advanced, there is much more likelihood of your business being affected. So don't put it to one side, just, you know, get on with it straight away.
Thank you. Jay?
No, I'm sitting here grabbing all those policies for you to make sure you got them all, but I think I counted 15 in that list. Outside of that, I think that, again, just keep learning. Whatever else you do in cyber, there's so much to learn. It keeps changing. It's moving fast. So spending a little bit of time each week, understanding, you know, what the threat landscape is and what it looks like going forward are so important.
Thank you. And I can see those policies now, so we'll get those shared straight away. And finally, Greg.
Yeah, I would say just don't bury your head in the sand, take action. And one point we haven't covered on today's session is Also consider, the Internet of Things, devices that are connected within your business. We've seen attacks through Wi-Fi kettles in the office, digital thermometers within fish tanks, CCTV systems. So it's not just about, is it on premises, is it in the cloud? Ultimately, if it's technology, it has an element of risk. It just needs to be managed, and Complete can help you with that going forward. So yeah. And if you have any questions, by all means, reach out through the Complete IT team. More than happy to help.
Thank you. So that gets us to bang on the end of time. So thank you to everyone for participation and helping guide us through what is a challenging subject, but one that continues to evolve, and it won't stop here. So we'll continue to have this conversation. We will share the content. So thank you, Jay, for the policies. We'll share that, but ensure that you've got access to the website and to some of the other content that we're putting out there. If you subscribe to our feeds, we'll obviously pass that on to you as we go through. But we have no more questions. So that just means say thank you very much, and we look forward to the next one.
Cheers.
Cheers. Thank you.
Thank you all.